Well, welcome everyone. My name is Corey Passons, and I'm the program manager for Interfaith Relations with Interfaith Works.
I am Bryant Watts, and I'm one of the on-site managers at one of the shelter sites with Interfaith Works.
Interfaith Works is a nonprofit social justice organization located here in Olympia, Washington. We are a coalition of 30 plus diverse faith communities and affiliated organizations. We're also the region's largest social service provider to vulnerable adults experiencing homelessness. And before we begin this Canada Forum today, we want to affirm that Interfaith Works as an organization does not endorse or promote any candidate running for these offices or for any candidates running for any elected office.
We are grateful for the candidates present today. Allow me to introduce them and the seats for which they are running. We have Robbi Kesler, City Council position number 2. We have Talauna Reed, City Council position number 5. And we have Candace Mercer, City Council position number 4.
Candidates, thank you for being here today. We offer this space and time as a place for you, the candidates, to share your platform and ideas for how to make our community a better place. And we appreciate you for your service and your active running for elected official in our community.
Each question will be stated, and then the candidates will respond in a rotating sequence. We ask that each response be no longer than 2.5 minutes in length, and we will hold up a sign when you have 20 seconds left.
We're going analog today with our 20 seconds, so you'll see that, and thank you. So we'll begin today. Candace, can we begin with you? And we'll give you 2.5 minutes. Why are you running for city council, and what are your goals if elected?
The real crisis in Olympia is lack of leadership. Nobody's willing to stand up and say enough. Enough to people living in encampments. Enough to open drug use and dealing. Enough to decriminalizing crime. Enough to political violence. The current city council has lost control of the city. They cannot even provide basic public safety anymore. They are unable to look at our problems realistically. I bring intellectual honesty and courage to the day. I spent the past 4 years reporting and writing on homeless response in Olympia. My work can be found on medium.com. Do a Google search, Candace Mercer, Medium. You'll find my articles. I have always approached this issue with an open mind. I've tried to answer the question, why is this happening? Lack of affordable housing due to 40 years of anti-growth policies is part of the equation, but it's not the entire answer. Our council likes to say we're all 10 seconds or 2 paychecks away from living in the camps. This is a lie. They know it's a lie. A gentleman who is advising me, a former meth dealer who lived in the jungle, put it this way: you party, I party till I'm homeless. This refusal to see reality is killing people, and it's destroying our city. And that's why I'm running. I love this city. This city has been so good to me, and it breaks my heart to see it in this state. It breaks my heart that progressives call the camps a cost-effective solution to homelessness, and they actually advocate in favor of the camps as a model for the future. Unlike the council, I ask the hard questions, and I am relentless in finding the answers. I have a lot to say on this topic. I toured the camps this week and reported from 7 different locations where I discussed my analysis of the situation, including the role of crime in the ecosystem. I have a YouTube channel. You can Google Candace Mercer YouTube. I will be posting the videos. They should all be up by the weekend. And I've made some other videos that are my pitches to Olympia voters. I am asking you to vote for courage on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Robbi?
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Robbi Kesler, running for Olympia City Council position 2. And why am I running? Well, I think that I have the education and experience necessary, and I really want to use that to give back to the community. I'm a Skokomish tribal member. I grew up in Mason County. I went on to college. I earned a full scholarship to study law at Arizona State University, and I immediately returned to this area to work for a local Indian tribe because that's truly my passion. I got the law degree and wanted to give back. Recently, I have quit working because of COVID. I wanted to stay at home with my kids during remote learning, and I really see this as an extension of service. I understand that it's important to bring a wide variety of perspectives to the council, and I think that I bring that. But beyond that, I want to make sure that I would work to understand the issues from a broad range of perspectives and then use that education experience, both lived experience and otherwise, to make practical decisions for the greater good of Olympia. I would like to see a government that is more transparent and inclusive. And that means making sure that you constantly evaluate as you're taking in comments from the community, you reflect and make sure that that comment pool really reflects the community. And I just want to also make sure that when people do stand up and want to be heard, that there is follow through. And I'm not entirely sure that that's happening at the moment. So just in summary, I do believe that lived experience is absolutely important, but I have the background through my education to actually move goals forward. I would base my goals on what I'm actually hearing in the community, not a list that I would bring to the position. I want to make sure that the community drives those goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Talauna.
So I'm Talauna Reed, and I'm running for the Olympia City Council position number 5. And I'm running for City Council because I have a perspective that isn't currently present on the Olympia City Council. Let me give you some quick background. Back in 2018, my family suffered a tragedy. We lost my aunt suddenly, and ultimately it was under suspicious circumstances, according to OPD and other officials. I've spent the last 3 years trying to get answers and pleading with city management and members of the current council for accountability and transparency. Trying to not only gain some closure, but to strategize and come up with policies locally that the community could benefit from regarding public safety and better policing, and feel as though my requests have gone unheard. And after attending countless city council meetings, reaching out to members of the council, and essentially being stonewalled by our current leadership, I began leaning on members of the community for support. What I came to realize is that there are issues within this local government that are far beyond my expertise that need to be addressed. In order to tackle some of the hard issues that we are currently facing or in the midst of, and that in order to gain the knowledge and understanding of the system, I needed to engage in the community from a different position. Now, keeping in mind, over the course of the last 3 years, several crises have come about. Racial justice being declared a public health crisis by Thurston County, homelessness and COVID-19, and lack of affordable housing are ones that I have been deeply impacted by. As a leader in the community, I feel like I'm up for the challenge of offering experience, education, skills, and abilities to the decision-making table that help the community through these crises. I believe the city of Olympia is in desperate need of long overdue diversification of the council. It's been over 30 years since a Black woman has been on the council, and after months and months of hearing members of this council, including my opponent, share about the need for change when it comes to dismantling systemic racism, I feel as though I'm the right candidate to be in position number 5. My goals, once elected, tend to be like a Google document. There have been multiple contributors throughout the community to my platform, and it's constantly being edited as I gain more knowledge of the different issues that most Olympians agree are causing the city to decline. So I'd like to help increase accountability and transparency. I want to work towards solutions to better outcomes. And as someone who has overcome homelessness, has been successful in recovery from substance abuse, who is a direct service provider to our houseless residents, and who is a renter, I'm that person. I can create positive change in my personal life as I can in the community. Thank you for your vote.
Thank you.
Yeah. Question number 2. Homelessness is a central concern and crisis in our community. A recent plan related to homelessness involves a proposed site for people living in cars and RVs that would relocate vehicles parked on Ensign Road to Martin Way and Carpenter Road. Would you please comment on this proposal, and how would you relate it to a wider plan for homelessness that you would endorse? We're going to move the rotation. Would you mind giving us your answer, Robbi?
Sure, thank you. So I do believe that some of the responses, such as having a safe place to park vehicles and RVs, is long overdue. I think that the current city council relies on this narrative that the surrounding cities and county have not been supportive. And there is some merit to that, but there needs to be better leadership to require that action. I think that there could be better and more robust legislative priorities regionally, but overall, I absolutely support making sure that there are safer places, more services available to existing places to, existing people that are parking on the streets and in camps. I think that the best response, a compassionate response, is not mutually exclusive to also making sure that we are providing those places in an area that is sensitive to environmental concerns, public health and safety concerns of the entire community, and also making sure that we are providing the services necessary to those in their cars, in their RVs. So I'm in support of it. And I just wish that it was happening faster and that it was probably already online by now. Thank you.
Thank you. Candace?
Hi. Ensign Road is one of the most frustrating sites I visited on my tour of the camps this week. We did an entire segment on Ensign Road, which is already up on my YouTube channel. For me, it's frustrating because many of the campers already have some form of shelter, which seems that solving the problem is relatively easier than solving it for the people that live in the jungle. There's clearly a need that's not being met. At this point, I think the best solution, in addition to the county pursuing a dedicated space, is to allow for privatized urban campsites that would be regulated and a safe option for this population. Given how long it's taken to stand up a public site, I am less than optimistic about the government being able to meet this need anymore. I think one reason this process has taken so long is that the city does not work well with the other jurisdictions. Lacey, Tumwater, and the county are rightfully suspicious about Olympia's response to homeless, and that's causing friction. This mistrust is historical and not limited to this issue. I've seen this dynamic in other areas as well. We are seeing when it comes to the Regional Home Fund and the reluctance of our partners to go down that same path. There seems to be a feeling that Olympia is forcing its values on the other communities. While the population of Ensign Road is mixed, it also has developed a reputation for being a bad neighbor and a safety hazard. The nearby medical providers have been significantly impacted. There's a rat problem at St. Peter's. People are tunneling under the medical buildings either for shelter or to steal. Businesses have had to hire private security. Patient safety is also being compromised. Emergency medical vehicles are being rerouted over to Lily Road. Sidewalks are blocked, forcing pedestrians into the roadway. Some of the campers wander into the road either due to intoxication or being in mental health crisis, and that's a pedestrian hazard. Campers are breaking into water and power lines, which present a fire and electrocution hazard with the potential to affect a blackout in an area that's necessary to our community's welfare. And so I just have to ask Olympia, are you okay with this? Because I'm not. I'm just not okay with this. Thank you.
Talauna.
So homelessness is a complex issue. Therefore, coming up with solutions is going to be also challenging. A number of residents in our community have written to me as a candidate regarding the city shifting encampments from one location to another. So this proposal is very important. It is crucial that even prior to executing the proposal, multiple bases need to be covered. If homelessness is a community problem, then it's going to take all of the community being a part of the planning and execution for any plans to be successful. This includes those neighborhoods directly impacted by the various neighborhoods that have growing encampments and ones that the city council plans to relocate to. There are a number of public safety concerns that should not go unaddressed when the city is considering moving the encampments from one location to another, such as fire hazards, provisions to try and limit harm to the neighborhoods, for example, crime, trash, etc., and inadequate community engagement. These are just a few, just some that have not been addressed adequately, by city officials. And until that happens, along with with other things, I don't think moving forward with the actual move of sites is in the best interest of the homeless folks relocating or the folks that live in those prospective communities. I would endorse a plan or a proposal that included accurate and current data. This is an area where within our community that the homeless response needs to improve. Additionally, I would endorse a plan that involved educating the community and holding community meetings, having folks experience homelessness present as many as possible from the beginning to the end, and the city's due diligence in providing equitable services on all levels. And just to touch on the community involvement, there has to be an extra effort, not only to hold meetings, but to act on the concerns of the community. I'll finish with this. If the harm reduction approach of recovery is being utilized, then the city needs to be intentional about increasing awareness and education so it can be more effective.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is about homelessness and affordable housing. Many consider homelessness and affordable housing as interrelated challenges. Please describe how you understand the relationship between homelessness and affordable housing. And please name your goals and methods for expanding affordable housing in our region and our city. Talauna, can we begin with you?
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, I agree that affordable housing and homelessness are interrelated. I believe that the lack of affordable housing, meaning housing where folks are not paying more than a third of their income, is a contributing factor to the number of homeless not decreasing in Olympia. The root cause of an increase of homelessness is systemic. The lack of affordable housing is also systemic. Both are snared in the nasty web of politics. And politics are the activities associated with the governance of an area or country, especially in the debate or conflict amongst individuals or parties having or hoping to achieve power. Again, homelessness is a complex issue. So when it intersects with another complex issue, such as affordable housing, it becomes even more difficult to navigate. So inevitably, plans to remedy such have to be in depth. Real quickly, there's about 17 low-income tax credit complexes in Olympia, with income restrictions and maximum rents, which are determined by the area median income. Thurston County's is $90,200 for a family of four, as determined by HUD, the Housing and Urban Development. The current city council supports policy that has, in the opinion of many, led to a massive growth in housing inequity. They've promoted a little over 1,200 units of luxury apartments and 124 units of low-income housing. Some goals of mine are to expand affordable housing and to become more informed and educated about the multifamily tax exemption, promote a city-run housing authority, and while rent increases cannot be capped at the city levels, study other protections for renters and implement them. I'm a renter, and I would also like to expand my knowledge of the home buying process and see how low-income home buying options, see more low-income housing home buying options spearheaded by the city of Olympia to create more housing equity for people, which would ensure that homelessness is at least not going to keep increasing. That's it.
Thank you. Robbi?
Thank you. Absolutely, they are intertwined. And I think that this answer needs to address a couple of different things. So first of all, making sure that people stay housed absolutely needs to be part of the homelessness discussion. And I'm not sure that that's always at the table. It's really easy to focus on the more visible attributes of homelessness, but we need to make sure that those people that do need just a little bit of help to stay where they're at and thrive there are supported as well in any response. And then in terms specifically of affordable housing, I tend to agree with what's already been said, and that is that a focus on truly affordable housing needs to take place. We need to make sure that we are working with other entities, the state, the federal governments, because the city of Olympia really can't solve that by itself. And I think that it's important to make sure that we do focus on what the city can do and then really elevate the discussion beyond the city to be protecting our residents and making sure that there are affordable housing. One thing that's come up in a prior debate is discussing home ownership and diversifying the options available out there. I think that making sure that units such as condominiums are part of that solution as we continue to grow kind of the saying up, not out. And that would require some changes at the state level. So that just goes back to my overall priority of making sure that we are tackling issues focused on Olympia, but then also making sure that we identify ways that we can change laws at the state and federal level. So it's absolutely intertwined, and I want to make sure that we are broadening the discussion to include keeping people housed and making sure that units as they come online are affordable. And if they're not, being ready to ask why and how we can do better to advocate for our residents.
Thank you. Candace.
I feel the relationship is not quite as simple as people would like to think. We are indeed in an affordable housing crisis that has been 40 years in the making, and it's going to take bold action to solve this problem. Plainly put, we need a housing boom. This is a problem that requires a relentless sense of urgency, which I'm simply just not seeing with our council. They talk about it, but I'm not seeing them doing anything. Part of learning about housing, the housing bottleneck for me has been meeting with builders and others in the housing trades to hear their perspective. The Olympia Master Builders recently had a forum, and I will note that none of the incumbents were at the forum to meet with the builders who are going to build housing in Olympia. I think that says it all. What I have learned has shocked me. Developers are overwhelmingly choosing to work in Lacey and Tumwater over Olympia because it's easier and less risky for their investments. Tumwater has 4 times the new housing construction as Olympia. In order to get any projects built in Olympia, we basically have to bribe the builders to work with our city. Why is that? As for housing for low income people, the cost to build here does not make economic sense for developers. They are not social service providers, though they are providing a valuable service to our community. We must find ways to streamline and lessen the cost of permitting and reviews to get more projects in the pipeline now. We also cannot wait for this increased stock to magically appear. We must also find ways to repurpose existing structures so they can provide housing in more efficient ways, which will hopefully impact rents. I would like to see a universal application program that would benefit both renters and landlords. For renters, it could provide a free or low-cost way of getting verified, which would help with application costs, which for some people can be extraordinarily high. It would also help landlords mitigate risk, which would help keep rents low. A service such as this could also facilitate co-housing and the ability of roommates to be better matched. We also need to explore more options like boarding houses, dorm-style housing, SROs, and especially investing in a transitional housing to get a roof over people's heads sooner than later. I will also note the city's tax increases along with the eviction moratorium has impacted rent significantly. My rent went up from $900 to $1,500, $600 in 3 years. I'm being evicted in March, so I'm going to be dealing with this problem firsthand.
Thank you, Candace.
I'm not okay with it.
Thank you.
Question number 4. Former Olympia Police Chief Aaron Jellick was recently quoted in the Olympian as saying, "It's not a crime. If it's not a crime, it shouldn't be an officer." This was in reference to community caretaking calls, mental health, substance abuse, behavior disturbances. Coming through the Olympia Police Departments, over half of the calls for the services are for this reason: crisis response unit. How would you modify the emerging relationship between the crisis response unit and the OPD? think with Talauna. So we're starting with Talauna.
Got it. So I would modify the emerging relationship between OPD and crew by voting for policy that ensures that crew maintains their autonomy and that they are not managed by the police chief. The successfulness of crew plays a huge part in increasing public trust and public safety. The police in Olympia are not the problem in policing in Olympia. It's my belief that the people in positions of power and leadership creating the policy that officers do or do not adhere to are the problem. Bad policing is a result of no accountability and a system that was built to uphold white supremacy, essentially, and is the cause of bad policing. If as part of crew's protocol that should be established as separate from the police is to send a crisis responder riding alongside police, then that should happen. But the police chief should not, or police should not have the power dynamic that makes them answerable to police and try to limit the interference. So we can try to limit the interference between crisis intervention and the possibility of crisis responders not being able to report police misconduct. But I would definitely keep them separate. I support crew and I support the expansion, even rolling over to our medics in Medic 1. I think a lot of calls that they get are also they need mental health providers there. And, but this doesn't, I don't think that this relieves them of the responsibility as police to improve their training overall. Because they are not the counselors, they still need to be able to be better equipped in how to deal with those situations.
Thank you. Robbi.
Thank you. Overall, this is a sentiment that I share. I think that the community shares it as well. The 2017 Public Safety Initiative passed overwhelmingly with things like walking patrol and crisis response type care given to our community. And I do believe that this is a benefit to those that are in distress. It's a benefit to making sure that we're efficiently using our city resources. So in general, I think that this the crisis response unit should be allowed to grow. Funding needs to be provided. Make sure that across the board, everyone involved in keeping the public safe is getting the training to make sure that that's carried out in a respectable way. And in general, should this be separated? I think that that's going to work its way out in the reimagining public safety discussion. And I fully support continuing that effort and making sure that this conversation is prioritized, seeing what the community really wants. And that would include a breadth of perspectives. So perhaps making sure that we are finding people that have used this service and feel that it was carried out well, if it wasn't carried out well, and figure out what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. And that current process is already underway. So I would not want to get in the way of that. And I want to see it carried out in a way that meets our community's goals and priorities. In general, it's a really important way to, again, respectfully keep everyone safe and meet them where they're at in times of crisis. So thank you.
Thank you. Candace?
There needs to be coordination between the crisis response team and OPD. The crisis response unit cannot operate safely without OPD backup because many people with mental health issues and substance abuse issues can be provoked to violence. An example of this is the murder that happened under the bridge last week. This is another site I reported from on my series of videos that can be found on my YouTube channel. I went under the bridge. In this instance, a group of young men went under the bridge to get high, where they encountered another gentleman who had gone under the bridge to masturbate. The men using drugs believed the man to be looking at them while masturbating and kicked and punched him into unconsciousness. The man appeared to be seizing with bloody foam coming out of his mouth. So his attackers got scared and tried to do what they could to wake him up. They tried splashing water on him. They then took an electric lighter and tried to shock him back into consciousness. The man later died. You okay with this? Or when a man who lived at the Percival Creek camp, when in meth psychosis, beat an elderly dog walker until he was unconscious. Violence is a reality in this world. There's also an incident at the mitigation site this summer that illustrates the volatile combination of mental illness and substance abuse the city's enabling. A mentally ill woman began to burn all her money as an exorcism of sorts. A man with a machete intervened to stop the money from being burned. A third man with a knife joined in the fight, and then there was a stabbing. That is the reality around the camps that is denied when you are proposing to send in unarmed, undefended civilians into situations that are volatile and unpredictable. It's a complete denial of reality. People are being put in danger. I don't understand why people refuse to see these harms. Certainly not every substance abuser or mentally ill person is violent. I understand that. But that combination can be deadly. We see it. People are dying. There was a second murder a year ago near the bridge. This isn't a one-off thing. So I have to ask Olympia, again, are you okay with this? Because I'm not.
Thank you. The Squaxin Island Tribal Council recently signed a memorandum, excuse me, I'll start over. The Squaxin Island Tribal Council recently signed a memorandum of understanding with the city of Olympia, and the Squaxin tribal flag was raised at this signing and will now be a permanent part of the flag display over City Hall of Olympia. Describe the importance of this MOU and the role that you would like to see regional tribes play in the ongoing stewardship of these lands. Robbi, could we begin with you?
Thank you. So describe the importance. Wow. I mean, it's very important. I am a tribal member, Skokomish tribal member, and I have devoted my professional life to working with tribes. It's important to note that tribes are sovereign governments. So of course, this government to government relationship should be recognized and honored. In terms of future work, I want to make sure that this action is carried through in a respectful way, that it continues to be upheld, that the government to government relationship is respected. It's always important to make sure that actions that you're doing are not performative. And I just really hope that this is a great stepping stone to the greater things to come within the city, within the region, and all of that. A couple of other things to point out. A government to government relationship is not the same as making sure that you are still communicating effectively with tribal people that live here. Not all tribal members and descendants that live here are descendants from local tribes. So we still need to make sure that we are reaching out to what we might term urban Indians in other areas. I don't know if Olympia is urban enough, but that captures all of those people that have been, that live here by choice or through efforts to terminate and the genocide related to the reservation system. So making sure that we're still trying to find those diverse voices and let them be heard is an important goal. And then also, separate from that, but important, is the continued government to government relationship. So those are passions of mine. I support what the council has done. It's perhaps long overdue, but I'm celebrating it from the sidelines right now. And if elected, I would certainly prioritize the continued elevation of Native voices in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Candace?
Thank you. Like many things, on the issue of the Squaxin, the city says one thing and does another. They put the rights of one group over the rights of another group, as well as they have double standards around groups. The city may have said some nice words last week and made a token gesture toward acknowledgement, but I urge voters to look at their actions toward the Squaxin, not their words. It is notable that this is also happening around the election in an effort to gain favor with the voters. The same thing happened during the election in 2019, though at that time the council prioritized the encampment under the 4th Avenue Bridge over the Squaxin tribe. I broke this story in an article I wrote for Medium called "Olympia Prioritizes 4th Avenue Bridge Homeless Encampment Over the Community." In a 6-1 vote, the council decided to allow the troubled camp to remain over the written objections of the Squaxin tribe. The words of the Squaxin were blunt. The encampment under the bridge is having a significant impact on the tribal community, and it needs to be removed from this location. The tribe complained about theft of salmon, denigration of the shoreline, and environmental pollution, saying, habitat recovery has taken a huge step backwards, and furthermore, there has been damage to the tribe's treaty protected rights. It is about literally decades of environmental remediation to sensitive areas. To put it succinctly, we cannot imagine a worse location to allow an unauthorized encampment to persist. The work preserving salmon habitat has been pursued with understanding that protecting and restoring the fish runs in Bud Inlet on the Deschutes River was as much about Olympia's community values as it was about the tribe's treaty protected rights to those resources. My opponent, Clark Gilman, voted against the Squaxin. So did Jim Cooper and Lisa Parsley. They had the letter. It was addressed to each of them. It came in time for them to have read it before the meeting and taking their vote. They voted against the tribe. Their actions mattered more to me than words or a flag. So they sold the tribe out. So it's really hard to trust their intentions going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Talauna?
My answer will be brief. It's been far past time to have representation from regional tribes at the decision-making tables here in Olympia and everywhere. While I'm not entirely versed on the memorandum of understanding, it's very, very important that the symbolic gesture of raising the flag, just like Robbi said, isn't performative. Inclusivity is a must for city government and any local government for any local government to grow productively and be relevant. In addition to the government to government relationship, like Robbi stated, as the original stewards of these lands, our regional tribes know what is best to protect and preserve it. I believe that the tribe should lead the ongoing stewardship of these lands.
Thank you.
Question 6. Anything else in closing that you would like our audience to know about you and your plans of what you will bring to this position? Candace.
Thank you. I want the viewers to know that I will be relentless in working to solve the problems around urban camping, public safety, and affordable housing. I will bring urgency, focus, and leadership to the council, as well as a journalist's curiosity to get at the truth of this matter in any situation. With journalistic values, that also comes an integrity to the truth, even if it makes me personally uncomfortable. There are a lot of things about our current policies that make me uncomfortable, and they should make you uncomfortable too. Olympians are kind and generous, but sometimes that prevents us from seeing the reality of situations that are different from our own. There is nothing ennobling about life in the camps, nothing romantic, nothing progressives should be okay with. I urge viewers to go to my YouTube channel and watch my reporting. You will see both my desire to create a new reality, as well as the heart I'm bringing to bear on these matters. I'm running because I care about these people and because I care about Olympia. We have to start setting better boundaries around behavior. We can't allow open drug use, prostitution, and theft to become normalized. Stealing not only harms the community, it morally injures the person doing the stealing. They know it's wrong. They know they are compromising their values. And the truth is, that can be a hard place to live, knowing that you have harmed others. Crime also pushes the perpetrators away from society. We also tend to forget about the victims of crime. They are being lost in the dialogue right now, and I'm trying to be a voice for those people who have been victimized. I have not forgotten them. I have heard their stories. There's no such thing as, oh, it's just property. That's a callous position, because behind every piece of property is a human with feelings. On November 2nd, I want you to ask yourselves, Are you okay with this? On November 2nd, I ask that you vote for courage. On November 2nd, I ask you vote for leadership. This is our home. We need to save it. Thank you.
Thank you. Talauna?
Thank you, Bryant and Corey, for hosting this event, and Interfaith for doing this also. I'll be honest, I'm very concerned about the direction our city is headed. I believe that if we continue to follow the path we're on, that Olympia will become unlivable for so many folks that live and work here. Already, so many Olympians are waking up to the reality that their rents are being raised, their bills are increasing, and that their wages just aren't keeping up. We as a city have the ability and responsibility to do better, and it starts with electing the right people into office. As a Black woman who's personally experienced homelessness, racism, and getting that dreaded letter from her landlord telling me my rent is raised yet once again, I can assure you that I am someone who will always prioritize the needs of and well-being of struggling Olympians. I've been out talking to the people in Olympia, and every single person that I've spoken with, they've all said that we need new leadership and new ideas in City Hall. We can't repeatedly elect the same people who run into office and then expect different results. Our homeless encampments have increased in numbers, and living in them has become a primary living housing option for anyone facing homelessness. Our current city council doesn't have adequate solutions on the table to remedy this, and I'm confident that I can work with a number of organizations and agencies to pull our great city out of this crisis. I, Talauna Reed, represent the diversity, the change, and the strength to challenge the status quo, and that this council desperately needs. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your vote. Visit TalaunaForThePeople.com to learn more.
Thank you. Robbi?
Thank you. Thank you, Interfaith Works, for putting this together. Thank you to anyone that has listened. I invite you to please reach out. I think I echo kind of a theme of the day, which is we do need change. And I believe that I have the experience, education, and background to help guide that change. I want to make sure that I hear from numerous voices. I have a history of working with tribal people. The first job that I had at the tribe was as a grant-funded legal researcher tasked with making sure that the tribal code was not only legally up to date and in order, but also working directly with tribal youth, tribal elders, the elected body, staff, to identify gaps and priorities, particularly as we were looking at the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act. It was really important to make sure that the code was up to date so that they could exercise the additional jurisdiction to keep their members safe. Additionally, I've worked at the State House of Representatives and making sure that I know how to draft laws that prioritize what the individual wanted. I know how laws should be written, how they interact, and how they can effectively do what the community wants. So I just, again, want to make sure that everyone understands that I do see a government that is inclusive and transparent and working to address the goals of all of those in the community. So I would challenge groupthink, challenge the status quo, but also work extremely hard to see a community that we truly want to live in, and that is compassionate and welcoming as we continue to grow, and tackling the big issues in a way that community guides. So I have the experience, I have the education, and I really want to do best by everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thanks to all of our candidates who are here with us today: Robbi Kesler, Candace Mercer, and Talauna Reed. Great to have you here today. Thanks for being here and participating in this candidate forum.
And to those of you watching, thank you for being with us today. You can stay in touch with us through our website at interfaithworks.org and follow us on YouTube and Facebook as well.
Thanks again to our candidates and all of you who've been with us today. Be well and have a great day.